From what I hear, disclosure is dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big headline. Disclosure's dead.
Did you hear the other good news, George, which is the entire, drone phenomenon with these objects, sizes of SUVs hovering over military installations? It's all been solved.
Apparently, there was one company that flew all those drones. They did it all and didn't tell anybody, but now they're fessing up. We just can't know much about the company. Did they also go over to the UK and buzz those air bases? Are they doing this over Europe and Denmark and Norway? Man, I got to get some stock in that company, whatever it is. What's the name of it?
An unnamed worker from an undisclosed contractor reportedly told a small gathering of undisclosed individuals that they were apparently responsible for last year's drone storm. Everybody's asking what my opinion is on the 3-eye atlas, object coming to Earth. Now, I'm not an astronomer. I'm not a scientist, but why they're asking me is because I made a statement back in January saying that, hey, there's a lie coming.
This is weaponized.
This is Weaponized. I'm George Knapp, coming to you from the world capital of sun, fun, sin, sex, and secrets, my hometown, Las Vegas, joined by my friend and colleague, Jeremy Corbell, who is hunkered down somewhere in Southern California. And I know it's temperate and beautiful where you are, Jeremy, but it is hard to convey just how excellent Las Vegas is in October. And I've said this before, sorry to harangue you about it again, but circle this on your calendar, folks. If you ever want to visit Las Vegas, October is the time to do it. It feels like Maui outside. What about in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, man, it's always sunny in California. I feel lucky to live here. And I did, just for the record, I got the memo and I'm wearing a tie. And I did this for you.
What?
Yeah, you are always joking. I don't got a tie. I want the world to know I have a tie. It's the same tie I've always had. I got married in this tie like 15 years ago, but I got a tie.
And the fact that it's hanging down and it's not attached up there tells me it's not a clip-on, too.
I know how to tie a tie. Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you this. This is the worst, ugliest tie in the world with aliens on it. I wore this once at Tikalias. They said no more of that. So,
Commander Fravor, if people zoom in on his time when he testified at Congress, he had little spaceships on it, which I thought was pretty cool.
So, we kind of had in mind for this week a bit of a breather. I mean, we've had this long string of powerful interviews. We had Chris Sharp last week and Dylan Borland for a couple of episodes. Previous to that, Matt Brown. I mean, we did some heavy stuff so far this year. It's been a really productive year for Weaponized. But, sometimes you need to pause a little bit and take some time to digest what is unfolding in UFO world. And so today we're going to do a little bit of that, look at current issues and events and news stories. And there are a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, from what I hear, disclosure is dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big headline. Disclosure's dead. It must be true because I read it on X and then it appeared in other places. And, I was unaware that Disclosure was actually ever alive. And we found out that somehow it's kicked the bucket. I'm assuming that, funeral services are pending. I hope we can attend. This is a very solemn moment for us. But where were you when you got this tragic news, Jeremy? And how are you holding up?
Yeah. I'm wearing a tie for the funeral of Disclosure. Look, again, people text me stuff. I'm kind of the canary in the coal mine for, UFO ideas. Everybody writes me like, panicked. What's going on? So these comments come from Carl Nell. And it wasn't as severe when I watched what he said. And I actually reached out to him and just had a really blip of a correspondence about it because I was like, I think you're being misunderstood here. But where it comes from, he says the recent cycle of disclosure since 2017 has effectively ended. That was his exact words. And what he's referencing is the UAP Disclosure Act, which he was really, really focused that had to happen for any kind of disclosure to happen. And just to give a little light to his argument from how I understand it, is that the Schumer-Rounds Amendment provided kind of like a management structure for oversight, accountability, and transparency by Congress. So I can get with that. I can get with it would have, right? The Schumer-Rounds Amendment would have effectively put some of that control into Congress's hands. And since a lot of these UAP programs are being held back by intelligence agencies and national security, you want Congress to have oversight over this. So I don't fully disagree with what the act would have done. But I do remember telling him from day one that being right, doesn't win the war. That even though that is a path to getting a formal disclosure, there are many paths to the mountaintop. And if one does not work, then you have to focus on others that will. So that's my takeaway. Without going into much detail right now, that's my takeaway, that this is just a kind of disappointment for people. And I share that disappointment for sure, but it is not the path I ever thought would take us closer to the truth on UAP. It was just one that was very optimistic if it did pass.
Yeah, well, my statement, my standard statement about disclosure, I never thought it would happen, at least not voluntarily. They're not going to come out and make an announcement and then let us all see the stuff. What has happened over the past 7 years or 7 years plus, it is encouraging to me. I think there's a lot of good that's happened. Good gosh, we're having conversations with scientific organizations. Major media people are doing stories and series, not all of them very favorable. Congress having hearings and digging in their heels. No one ever said this was going to be easy. No one ever said it was going to happen overnight. But the problem is, and I don't believe we will ever achieve full disclosure, what the public has in mind, but you have to try. You have to press the buttons and push the ball down the field. And there really has been tremendous progress. I guess Carl Nell, I don't know him. I've never talked to him. I know about him. I guess he was disappointed with the hearings. He felt like the last hearing was just repeating the same stuff. And, we were there, Jeremy. I thought it was a really powerful presentation, great testimony. An active duty Navy guy was on the stand there testifying to Congress. Amazing. An actual whistleblower who's been through the whole process was there telling stories. All of those witnesses brought something to the table. I don't think it's repetitive. The more that the public knows, the more that Congress knows, the better it is. And, those members of Congress that were asking the questions, their heels are dug in. They want some answers. And the fact that it's hard to get people to cough up good information doesn't discourage them. What we don't know is why this legislation has been killed. We don't exactly know whose fingerprints are on it. But you and I have said this for years now. Look, the closer you get to the goodies, the harder the pushback is going to be. Someone killed that and didn't want their fingerprints or any evidence that they were related to it. And they killed it again and again. And I think we need to find out who that is. That committee, the Secrets Task Force in the House, is doing great. You are in contact with people in the Senate who are very quietly continuing to push. Even though the legislation has now failed, they are making progress. There are a lot of people in that Trump administration, in those circles, who are deeply interested in the subject. And you can't just expect it to go away. Nor can you expect, as Carl Nell has suggested, this big overall program that could link together all of the legacy programs and get to the bottom of it and have true oversight of all the secret keepers. That's a great idea. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like that, already in the planning stages. But how is that going to happen without Congress? Congress can't walk away from this. The reason we see so much pushback and criticism of Congress is because they actually have the power to make some progress on this. And no, they haven't cracked the code here yet. They haven't been in the hangars to see the saucers or the bodies, but they have made progress, and they're committed to following it up. And they would be needed in order to create the kind of program that Carl Nell has been talking about. Now, in anticipation of you and I kicking this around, I looked up his whole bio, and he spent 34 years in technology leadership. He was with Bell Labs, Lockheed, Skunkworks, Northrop Grumman. He was the CEO of a couple of big companies, congressionally chartered acquisition on advisory council. He's been in the U.S. Army in a command position. He's been in tech. He's been in defense contractors. He sounds like the kind of guy who would really be a good person for that UFO czar program to head it. But also he sounds like he's a guy who knows where this stuff is. He's made those statements, has he not? I am 100% sure. I have no doubt whatsoever that there's non-human intelligence interacting with us. Well, it'd be really nice if he would go to Congress and tell them how he knows. Where is it? Where's this information?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he did say, we have to think about a new way forward. He's talking about with the mechanisms of government in place. And I consider him a friend. We've talked a few times in depth about all of this. I've invited him, to come on and have this conversation with us because I think his voice is valuable. And I don't want to pull people out of context by clips, that you see running on social media, because that always happens to me. Recently, on some podcasts, people are putting clips out of things that I said that are just partial stories to it. So I think that's an important conversation to have. I think that he's an important voice in this. He's a deep thinker, but I think we need to expand on these ideas so we can all find that path forward together. I think what's being missed here is that it was, and again, if you're kind of new to this fight, I'm talking about since 2017, you're going to maybe forget where we were before that. And you and I you were dealing with this a lot longer before that. But I was there during the dark ages. And, look, 50 years of no congressional hearings. Why do I fight so hard to bring quality witnesses in? Because Congress has the power. If anybody's going to have oversight over the shenanigans of these legacy programs and the bullshit that we have seen with the deception, the disinformation, the way that people's careers have been harmed, it's going to be Congress. It's going to be the power of Congress. Now, as you mentioned, yeah, I do speak with people in Senate who are not publicly out about this stuff. Particularly, I'll say that there is a feeling of knowledge that not guessing, of knowledge that this is real, this is true, and we have Houston, we have a problem. But in order to bring that forward and really get at it, you have to have people that can also speak publicly. The majority of testimony from people really involved at a high level has been behind closed doors. That's why the fight with these public hearings is to get people, no matter how small their piece, if we can verify it, to have them be able to speak publicly. And I've heard it all privately, and I know Congress sure has. I mean, we've had to brief intelligence agencies on the very fundamental basics of what we know so they can catch up. And look, you're not going to spend 2 weeks, 2 months, even 2 years in an agency, even with all the great computers you have and people you could talk with and sources and look at classified stuff. You're not going to get the full picture in a short amount of time. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to round this out with saying that I think that behind the scenes, there is real understanding of the functional reality of what we call UAP. And I know that people are working inside and out to try to expose this and the corruption of it so that it doesn't harm more people. It's time for the public to know. Now, how we're going to get there? Are we going to get there? You don't think we are. But as you said, we have to fight for it. And we have to build off of the past and build off of these hearings and don't have a defeatist attitude ever.
Yeah, I agree with that. And while I am saying that I don't think there's a day that disclosure suddenly happens, I do think there are ways that we can learn what's really going on. And even if it's not the president making an announcement, yep, we've been lying to you all this time, sorry about that, you can still make progress and understand it. There are scientific organizations. Carl Nell works closely with Saul, which is having its big yearly meeting, I think, this coming weekend in Italy.
Whoa.
We were there. Weaponized should be there. I think that's where he probably is. And Congress is an important component of it. Media pressure is an important component.
Yeah.
Citizen involvement, scientific organizations, that all has to sort of work in conjunction with each other to keep the pressure on and try to squeeze these secrets out of the people who are keeping the stuff secret. I think that there is a way to make progress through that. And it would be with people like Carl Nell helping. Like I said, I don't know the guy. I'm not dissing him at all. But it's looking at his history. He comes out once a year, makes a statement, and then goes away, and that's it. If he wants to move this ball down the field, make progress, how about being part of it? Being more public. Tell us what you know. Or if you can't tell us, tell Congress. You're 100% sure. How do you know? Where is it? Where's the goods? But he has to impart that information if he really wants to get things going.
Yeah, well, I think we should encourage people that are willing to speak more and to be very clear. This is going to be done with, with the media, with evidence, with people coming forward. And I can tell you this, you're not going to push people back down. You're just not. When Alexandro testified as a Navy individual, when he testified in front of Congress, man, it emboldened people to talk with me even more about what's going on. So now the flip is, will they come forward? It's a sacrifice to come forward. If somebody gets away with not having, reprisals on them when they do come forward, it emboldens people, but there is going to be pushback. Those hearings were great. The pushback, I would suspect, will be to try to influence Congress with disinformation and lies. That's what I suspect is going to happen in the future. So we just have to be fastidious. We have to document everything. We have to bring the facts to the table and make sure people don't fall for them. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. You and I are probably, again, like the canary in the coal mine. Let's just talk about it. This brings me to the Atlas thing. If it's okay, let's jump into that.
Sure.
Everybody's asking what my opinion is on the 3-eye Atlas object coming to Earth. Now, I'm not an astronomer. I'm not a scientist, but why they're asking me is because I made a statement back in January saying that, hey, there's a lie coming. And of course, it was part of a show and it was just but if you watch the whole show, you kind of understand what's going on. And I've made a ton of statements about why I would say something like that. I'm not hiding and just saying it. I've explained to people why multiple times, but people are asking about that. Now, I don't know anything about that particular comment. I read the same stuff as everybody else. The trend I'm realizing, our friend in the disclosure movement, Avi Loeb, he talks about these unique characteristics and he's not wrong about that, but it is a consensus of one. I don't see a bunch of other astrophysicists and people working on this stuff really echoing that same sentiment. I do love his open-mindedness and he knows far better than me and he's investigating the unexplained, not explaining the uninvestigated. So I've got a lot of happiness and joy for the way that he's looking at this problem set. But I will stand firm in that I said in January, and I actually said it earlier, but it was, I think it was played in January, that there was something coming, that people were going to try to convince the public at large that there was a spacecraft slowly moving to Earth, and that didn't come out of thin air. That wasn't just something I made up before I sat down. That came from years of people trying to impose upon me something to use my mouth, that there was this threat coming, that there's a 1970s document that I believe to be classified for sure. And, I don't have the ability to get that out to people, but it postulated this. So there were so many warning signs that this was going to happen. I finally said the quiet part out loud. Intelligence agents from multiple agencies, durationally, over years, would call me and slowly edge at me with this theory and this idea to try to get me to say it. And it felt so manipulative, I had to call it out. So that is specifically why I said it, because I felt that pressure over time. I know you've been told, oh, there are these hints of big things coming. Well, if it is, fucking say it. If it is, then you have a duty to say it. But no one's standing up and raising their hand. So I do think it's absolute nonsense. I think that you're going to see, a comet that's, maybe unique by material, pass by the Earth, and life goes on. I'm pretty high confidence that that's what's going to happen. But again, I don't know. I'm not an astronomer or anything. I just know what intelligence agencies have tried to push on me.
A lot of people have jumped to a conclusion. Aha, Jeremy was talking about this one. How did he know? And, I was wondering that myself since you hadn't shared it with me.
But you've heard it. You've heard it, George.
Yeah, of course.
2027 to 2036. Ooh, a big thing is coming. Okay, what is it then? How'd you find out about it?
I've been around long enough to remember Hale Bopp. Hale Bopp. Art Bell, a lot of people saying, oh, there's something following it, a big spaceship, end of the world coming. And then the crazy cult people in Southern California all drank the Kool-Aid and died, killed themselves so they could meet up with it. Bad stuff can happen when you do that kind of crazy prognostication. And I'll tell you, I saw this last night on X. Somebody had a picture of Avi Loeb, and they're quoting him as saying, if you're going to take a vacation, you better do it before October 29th, because this is it. And You know what? I don't know that Dr. Loeb said anything even remotely close to that.
Oh, he did.
Take your vacation before October 29th.
Yeah, I saw the video clip. But again, it's all about context, right? So when you're doing an interview and you're talking with people, he was probably kind of making a joke. He wasn't doing a doomsday thing, but it becomes like, biblical scripture. Everybody's got it. Look, Avi Loeb is fighting to investigate the unexplained, not to explain the uninvestigated. That is awesome, but it's the media and social media doing it to itself. I just I don't know, man.
Well, I just know that I'm not going to be able to take a vacation before October 29th because slave driver Jeremy keeps me tethered to this desk here for weaponized.
That's
So
right.
I'm out of luck.
That's right. Well, look, in positive news, man, I saw Bill Maher made a cool statement. He was talking about UAP, and a lot of our friend Dan, who's a big fan of the Bill Maher show, he's like, dude, we got to have somebody on Bill Maher who really knows their shit about UFOs. And he was kind of saying, look, this looks like obviously there's some sort of reconnaissance. There's some sort of observational program or something by these unknowns, these unidentifieds that nobody, is controlling that we know of here on Earth. It was kind of cool the way he brought it because he seems like a real logical guy. That was a positive thing I saw this week was his statements on UAP.
Agreed. I don't think I've ever heard him talk about UFOs before. And I don't recall ever seeing him have a UFO related witness to be interviewed or be one of the panelists. But that'd be cool to see. It's clear that Bill Maher has been doing some reading about the topic. I don't think he would jump into this arena if he didn't have a knowledge base, because, people love to rip him a new one every time he goes off on a tangent of one kind or another. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I was glad to see it.
Did you hear the other good news, George, which is the entire, drone phenomenon with these objects, sizes of SUVs hovering over military installations? It's all been solved. It's all been solved. Have you heard this?
Yeah, I heard. I heard it in a generic sort of way because they're a little short on details. But apparently there's one company that flew all those drones, kind of testing them out over New Jersey. They did it all and didn't tell anybody, but now they're fessing up. We just can't know much about the company or, how many freaking drones does this company have that they flew hundreds of them over New Jersey? And did they also do the 17 nights in a row incursions at Langley Air Force Base and shut down the base? Did they do that at Wright-Patterson? Because I got a feeling that the U.S. Air Force might have some questions for these guys. Did they also go over to the UK and buzz those air bases? Were they responsible for the incursions at Plant 42 here in the Southwest? Are they doing this over Europe and Denmark and Norway and Germany and all these other countries? Man, I got to get some stock in that company, whatever it is. What's the name of it?
Oh man, you're bumming me out. Oh, they didn't give the name. Let me break this down real quick. There was a title in the Express. The title, I was like, oh cool, they figured it out. Mystery behind New Jersey UFO scare last year solved by private company. I was like, okay, that's the title. Let me see what's next. Subtitle: the private contractor has apparently claimed responsibility for mysterious drones. And I'm like, why you got to be saying apparently, right? And then I read the body of the article and I'm going to break it down. The actual claim is this. Imagine this. This is, I swear to God, word for word. An unnamed worker from an undisclosed contractor reportedly told a small gathering of undisclosed individuals that they were apparently responsible for last year's drone swarms. I haven't heard a weaker narrative about the drone swarms than that. It was so ridiculous. It explains zero from the observed formations, the vast scope of events, the government responses, the interagency statements. Zero of that it explains, and it provides zero verifiable evidence to back up even those flimsy assertions. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's a sad and desperate attempt to use the media. It reminds me of the 2019 disinformation that it was the Bass Strait that was carrying the 100+ units that were flying around those 10 Navy warships. It's just not true. They're not even identifying a culprit, yet you see it pop up on social media where people are replicating this as if they're raising their hand in the air. We figured it out. What are you talking about?
It reminds me of Doug and Dave. So Doug and Dave were these two old barflies in Britain. And when the crop circle phenomena first became a really big deal, getting a lot of media attention, they step out and said, it was us. We did it. And of course, these two old guys even demonstrated they can make crop circles. They can mash down corn or wheat or whatever. And but the problem would be that there are hundreds of these things, gigantic formations. They've been around for centuries in Australia, in Canada, in the US, all over, not just the UK. And it calls to mind that Doug and Dave had to cut into their drinking time quite a bit to be able to get all this done. And it was preposterous,
Yeah, you have looked at the crop circle phenomenon for a long time. I remember that with your work when I didn't know you, but I was watching some of what you did. You and Linda Howe looked into that. Also, we had people on Weaponized. People should go back, rewind the tape. We talked about this series in Australia about the original, what they called saucer nests, which were these, very interestingly woven flying saucer landing places. And so, yeah, it is interesting that you get these two kind of barflies that come out and take credit for everything. And that does remind me, although it's a weak sauce attempt with this weird article, but, it's that kind of thing. Disinformation spreads easily.
Well, the thing is, it will work.
Right.
This is already being repeated. Oh, that has all been debunked now. It's already being picked up by other media folks. Well, that's debunked. And that's how debunking works. All you have to do to debunk something is declare it debunked, and somebody will repeat it. There are all kinds of famous cases where, that's been debunked.
What about
who did it?
What about your friend?
Say it, and it happens.
Yeah. And what about your friend? I know I just read a bunch about Dr. Beatriz. You had Dr. Beatriz on your Netflix show, and you talked with her about what she called transient objects. She's probably, they're going to be attacking her research now that she put that out. I'd just be curious what you think about it. Have you seen it in the news?
I have seen it. I've interviewed her, for that Netflix Investigation Alien. I interviewed her another time, and then she's been sort of putting me off for a couple of months, I think, waiting for her paper to be published. Actually, her and a group of colleagues have now had 2 papers published about this amazing finding. She had pored over thousands and thousands of sky photographs that were taken decades ago at Palomar Observatory, at the Harvard astronomy facilities, and noticed an anomaly. These objects that appeared to be stars, but were transient. In one photo, they were there. In the next photo, they're gone. Clearly, they were not stars. So over the years, she's developed a theory that they were, in essence, some kind of satellite. And there were a bunch of them circling the Earth. The main point is, though, they were satellites before we had satellites. So this paper has been published in 2 different publications. It's been peer reviewed. I mean, it's a pretty powerful. You want evidence that somebody else is watching us? This is evidence if it bears out. I've seen the attacks already from debunkers. They're saying that these objects were mogul balloons. Yeah, they weren't satellites, but they were balloons that somehow got up into space, and there's a reflection of sunlight off of them that makes them look like metallic craft. Mogul balloons, if you'll recall, that was the double secret probation explanation for Roswell. It wasn't just a balloon. It was a rootin' tootin' balloon, Project Mogul, which, of course, a lot of people accepted that, even though no mogul balloon had been released at the time of the Roswell thing. And so, the way it will work is these debunkers will release that, make that claim, it's balloons, and a lot of people will read it and walk away because it's easier to do that. It's easier to just wipe your hands, walk away, than dig into the data and pay attention to the conversation. I'm sure that Beatriz is going to respond to it. I look forward to seeing what she says. I think already you said you had read something about why that explanation doesn't work.
Yeah, it was awesome. I just kind of started looking into it, and she responded directly back. Somebody was saying, it's probably balloons from this era. First of all, the altitudes don't match up, but even without that, she was just talking about the exposures being 50 seconds, and the balloons wouldn't show up like that. So she just smashed them with a single tweet. But it's really interesting. I first learned about her on your Netflix show, and then I kind of looked into her work, and then just being that she's doing these peer-reviewed papers, this is how it's done. And Avi is doing the same thing to be really kind of obvious about this. They're doing the work, man, and they're trying to show these anomalies and investigating the unexplained. And I really appreciate it. So she's going to be attacked.
Yeah, well, I know she's attending the Sol event. She's on her way to Italy now, but maybe we can get her on this show. I did an interview with her for KLAS, and I'm going to be creating a couple of news stories about it in the near future, and then we'll put the entire interview online. But it would be fun to have her on here. She's an engaging personality. She's a brave too. She's been kicked around pretty good by her colleagues. I don't know if that has to do with her being a woman. I know there are some associations that she's had that have caused problems, but I think largely it's because people don't want to deal with the information that she has. It's too hard to debunk it. And if it lives up under scrutiny over the next several months, right, it's a big step forward. Again, courageous scientists who have the guts to do their job, to follow the evidence where it leads. There aren't all that many of them, at least there weren't before. That's the way you make progress on this question.
And there are now, and that is another indicator and a sign, these peer-reviewed papers with people putting their necks out. There's not one way to go about disclosure. And I really see that we've built this great momentum. And look, I get UFO fatigue as well. Can you imagine in my house, your house, tip jar for saying the word UFO? Another call, it's like, but over time, you just have to look at the kind of broad spectrum, how much we have learned, because people are now emboldened to come forward, and that's only going to increase. So disclosure is not dead. It was either always dead, like you said, we have no chance, or we've really learned a lot throughout the years, and that's just going to increase. And that's I'm very optimistic from where we are. But George, there are these weird stories that come up that I think really flood the zone, as you would say, and they just distract us. It's good to look at them, but did you hear that one about that mystery object that smashed the United Airlines windshield over Utah?
Of course, and people jump to the immediate conclusion, good gosh, that must be a UFO, an alien craft of some kind. But it wasn't. And now we heard today it was an actual weather balloon. The weather balloons that have been used for all kinds of UFO cases to explain them away, it might actually fit this one for once. So I'm glad. People would say, well, they'd argue to death about an explanation for a case. Look, we're fine with explanations for cases. We've released a lot of videos on this platform here, and people will come up with bogus explanations for them, very weak kind of debunking strategies. But when you really have a good, solid explanation that people come up with, we're good with that. Scratch it off the list and move on. That's the way the process works.
That's right. That's how you get to the brass tacks on these things. So I know there's some things coming up in pop culture surrounding the UFO topic. I know one of them is that we went to a premiere of a movie called Age of Disclosure with a lot of people we know in that movie. And I know that's coming out. What do you think about it? People are really excited.
Well, it's a terrific film. We got to see it when it was first shown in Austin months ago. And it was very powerful. And, they don't have, a live alien speaking to the camera in this movie, which is what people are going to say, oh my gosh, just people talking about it. But when you see the quality of the people, the professionalism, the height of their careers at Intel and Defense Department and scientists and really bright people who've been on the inside and are now sharing what they learned because they feel it's safe now to impart that information to the public, and people are going to freak out. It's a powerful presentation. Dan Farah's film, I forget what the date of it is, but is it November or December? It's November.
Yeah, November. Yeah.
There's two other ones, though. Before the end of the year, two other ones are coming out, and I think you may have heard a little bit about them. One is James Fox. He has this, he goes back to Varginha, Brazil. He was tracking down people who might have seen or have knowledge of this live alien that was recovered from a crash in Brazil. And he's produced one film, and he came this close to really nailing it down. He shared with us some information at the Contact in the Desert event, and in a lot of communication since then, you've had as well as me, about the progress that he's made. And that film is coming out also, I think, in December, and it's going to be a whopper.
Cool.
It's going to really be good. You've seen the trailers that are still.
I have. He shares with me, but mostly it's his enthusiasm when he comes up and he's telling me, I got the doc to finally talk about the alien body right in front of him. I mean, he's like so excited about it, and it excites me when he's that excited about it. So yeah, it's these kinds of things, man, where I think it's just piece by piece. So that's a great movie that's going to be coming as well. And then I know there's another one.
David Paulides.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Paulides. He's known best now for Missing 411, these strange disappearances in national parks and national forests, and has written several best-selling books on that. But I recall the first time I met him and encountered and interviewed him, it was about Bigfoot. That's his point of origin for these topics, is a search for Bigfoot. And he wrote 2 really good books about it. He's now come full circle back to Bigfoot. But it's not just a mystery ape running around in the forest. It's the UFO Bigfoot connection. And as you and I have talked about it many times, no one's happy about that. UFO people don't want to hear that Bigfoot was standing by a flying saucer, and it drives the Bigfoot people crazy. But I mean, that's changing over time. And I know that some of the people that Dave interviewed for this film are people we know really well who do believe there is a connection. We don't exactly understand what it is or why, but I've seen parts of that film and the trailers for it. It looks really good, and it's coming out right, I think, in the first week of December. It's going to be released, and it's going to be excellent.
Yeah, the inconvenient yet unescapable experience that I've had, and I know you've had it too, is that you get these really credible people who are intelligence agents, or they work in military standing, or they're just professionals in life, and they tell you about a sighting they had, and you can tell that they're holding something back. And man, I'd say more times at a not, when you get a really good close encounter, there are always some interaction with beings, but they're so weird. They're so weird. They feel foolish talking about them. I'll give you one example. I never talked about this. I recorded it. This was probably 5-6 years ago. It was a female who worked in the medical industry. Obviously, she doesn't want to be seen as being loose in any way in her mind. So she's just wanted to get it off her chest. She was in England. And she told me about this encounter she had that really transformed her life. And she's not telling me part of it. And I can tell. I said, so what are you leaving out? What is the question I didn't ask? And she goes, well, it's not something I want to talk about, but you didn't ask if there are occupants. I go, were there occupants? And she goes on to describe this scene where the craft was there. And she said it was like as if somebody pushed fast forward on a VHS tape, where these little tiny, kind of 3 foot, 4 foot tall beings were zipping around, doing stuff at a speed that would not make sense. And it was almost distorted to her vision. Man, how many times have I heard that from people that have talked about really powerful close encounters? And also, the way you rationalize it. When she first was talking to me, she's like, look, I thought somebody threw a silver Frisbee in my backyard and it got stuck on a line or something. They're trying to rationalize these things, which is normal. So yeah, man, it is odd to me that this movie, about the Bigfoot might have UFO connections or vice versa, but it's something you and I have heard so much, it's hard to deny that as a reporter.
Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, it's a great example. The NIDS, Bigelow organization, NIDS, that went to the ranch, bought the property, set up camp there, spent years on the ranch to study UFOs because it was a UFO hotspot, encountered all kinds of weird stuff that didn't seem to connect. Creatures, Bigfoot type creatures, other unknown animals. I mean, and I know all the fun that debunkers have had with this. Oh gosh, these people are just making up stuff to cash in on it. About Bigfoot and dino beavers and, other kinds of creatures that don't exist. How do you feel those guys felt when they saw these things? They're there to investigate UFOs, which is already shaky topic in the eyes of the scientific community. And they start seeing these creatures that seemingly do not exist. They're not happy about that. They don't want to tell anybody. What does it do to their credibility? PhD scientists, high-ranking intelligence officials, Jim Lukatsky, Jay Stratton, people like those who have stellar reputations see this stuff and don't know how to handle it. They know how people will react. They know how easy it is to debunk and make fun of werewolves.
Yeah,
But
you'd make something up. If you're making something, you make something up that is more palatable and makes you, appear to be more credible. You wouldn't make something up that is just like so weird you don't even know what to say. And you have also interviewed people. I've seen all these new reports, but I look back at your old reporting, and you have interviewed people in sensitive facilities surrounding UAP, happenings that have seen some of these shadow people and stuff like that. Can you tell me, because that's coming back up in social media, but you covered this a long time ago. Tell me what you found back in the day.
well, specifically shadow type people at the ranch, for example, the security guys would say.
And Area 52, didn't you do a
Area
report?
52 as well. Yeah, I know Ross Coulthart did a recent interview about these guys who are stationed at Area 2,
Okay.
which is at Nellis. It's where the nuclear weapons used to be stored. There's a storage facility, big, and they'd have strict, very serious security measures. And the guys there would not only see UFOs on occasion, but creatures, including these shadow beings, big, tall, humanoid shaped, but like they're made out of dark clouds or something like that. Those same kind of things were seen at the ranch multiple times. I recall the story about one of the security officers. He's on his computer talking to his wife, and she can watch him, and he's told her he's there alone. And in fact, something walks behind him. She goes, "Who's there? Who's that?" He goes, "There's nobody here. It's this big, tall shadow thing," which you experienced to a degree during one of the trips to the ranch. You and Robbie Williams, same.
Let's be clear. I didn't experience it. It was reported to me that this thing was behind me. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, so we don't know how this works. Dr. Jim Lukatsky, who created and managed the OSAP program, which was the big program. It was a whopper, $22 million secured funding from Harry Reid and a couple other members of the Senate. He explained it to me. Look, we were there to study UFOs. That was the primary objective. But we followed the evidence wherever it led. And I think the DIA, his employer, was curious whether someone had developed technology to put these things in our head. Not that it's a byproduct of the UFO, but that there is tech that can make us think we see something ferocious and scary, like a werewolf or a dino beaver. And that was worth investigating. It was one of the reasons that he got approval from higher ups to start that program. By the way, Jim has a new book out, Let's see if I've got one. Have you got a copy there, Jeremy?
I do, not on my desk here. I got the tie, but no book.
Sure. We'll have to plug it again. We'll have to talk to Jim, see if we can get him on. And
we got to get him because, the big thing, if I'm kind of reading the tea leaves of the UFO culture right now, people just want to know. There's been every indication. Is there a legacy UFO program, a program to study and capture and reverse engineer technology of unknown origin, of NHI origin, as has been testified to under oath in Congress? Is this true? Well, I'm convinced. And the answer is yes, and logically yes. Think about what Dr. Lukatsky testified to in his books, but also here on Weaponized. It would be negligence if we didn't study this. We did study it. We know that he had a program through the DIA, but do we have hardware? Well, he admitted to it. He admitted to it on this show. That's the biggest disclosure that I have heard from a government official, saying that the United States government, has a craft of unknown origin, technology of unknown origin, NHI, that we breached the hull. So we got to get him back on, because for me, that is one of the most significant testimonies in the history of finding out if we have these legacy UFO programs. He's straight admitting it. And I want to push him again on it. I know you do too.
Oh, he loves giving interviews. He's out there giving interviews all the time. He's on camera everywhere. I'm being facetious, of course. He doesn't like to do interviews, but I think he's going to come on with us, and I might get him for KLAS too. Before we leave, we're on the topic of Bigfoot and Dave Paulides and his film. There's another Bigfoot development here in Las Vegas, and it's a guy I've known for a long time. He was a chief photographer at KLAS years ago. He's also a very talented sculptor. His name is Jeff Taylor, and he and a partner have created a new consumer product related to Bigfoot. It's called Big Shadow Bourbon. Now, I'm not a bourbon drinker. I know people will have a hard time believing that, but I don't drink whiskey, hard liquor. I don't. But I was very interested in getting this because Jeff crafted his own version of Bigfoot. He's done these things before, Mighty Joe Young, King Kong. This one is pretty special, though. And if you buy a particular version of his booze, Big Shadow Bourbon, this comes with it. You put the bottle in there, and you're covered up with Bigfoot, and it's awesome.
That's
awesome.
so that's going to be the social media meme is George Knapp with his Bigfoot alcohol holder. But that's your buddy who. So shout out. What's your buddy's name? What's his company?
Jeff
Shout
Taylor.
out to
Jeff Taylor.
Jeff Taylor.
Very talented guy. We're going to probably put a story together about the process of how he created the sculptures and what they hope to do with it. It's just a fun story. And again, I am not grifting. I don't own a piece of the company. I don't even drink bourbon. But I think people will be interested in it. And Bigfoot people will be interested in that too. I'm sorry to say that we missed a really big event, by the way, Jeremy, as we're leaving this program. It was a really big event. I saw it on Susan Jerbick's Twitter account a little bit ago.
Oh.
We had the most amazing UFO mothership show for our West Virginia Skeptic Camp. They had this skeptics gathering in West Virginia. And I was just thinking to myself, A, how were we not invited? Yeah. And B, that must have been one hellacious shindig. All those skeptics, what fun people they must be. Rootin' tootin' wild people. Man, what a party. And I'm so sorry we missed that.
Oh, man, I love the open-minded people are way more fun to party with. But, hey, where is our invite? I would bring a lot of life to that party. I'm just saying, I'd like to be invited next time. Look, I think, George, in conclusion, what we can all agree on, we talked a little bit here about, so disclosure is not dead. Like, that's a completely silly statement. That's not the entire statement that was made, but just in general, I want to say that what we can all agree on is that, the battle of learning more is going to be, won not through apathy and retreat. It's going to be, won by persistence and attrition. And, it has been acknowledged that the UAP phenomenon is real. A lot of people didn't need that. It's puzzling, but it's important. And I believe that it's going to take individuals and groups of people to all kind of go their own way to try to fight for more information. Maybe I'm biased being a journalist with you. I think that we're going to learn the majority from people, actual people that just come forward to us. I think science will play a role in it as well, but I think whistleblowers having the Constitution and the motive to come forward and go as far as they can without putting themselves in jeopardy or hurting national security, I believe that is how we're going to make progress on that. And, we'll find out. Truth will be told in 20 years from now, not 20 days. But yeah, that's my prediction, as well as that it's just a comment.
I'm there with you. I am pessimistic about the idea of a formal disclosure announcement. Here's all the proof, and you can kick the tires on the flying saucers. And sorry for lying. I don't think that kind of event will ever happen. But it is worth plugging away and trying to make it happen and learning what we can. And it's got to be more than a couple of reporters, you need organizations like SAL, scientific organizations, people like Dr. Avi Loeb, people like Carl Nell. And again, I'm not disrespecting him at all. I'm glad he said what he said. I don't agree with it, but hey, man, if you're into this and you want to see progress, join the fight.
Yeah, and
not just an interview here or there, but get involved. You clearly know a heck of a lot more than you've said publicly. Let's hear it. Where is this stuff? Come on, Weaponized. You have an open invitation.
I've talked to him about it. I would love to look, and disagreement is good, but the idea is to put down your cards on each side and really talk it through. So I think that's what we got to do. I'll shout out to him again. He is a friend, and I do appreciate his mind on this. And we forgot one movie, which is the Lazar movie. I know there's a new documentary coming out, and we're not involved with it, but Bob is a friend after all these years of seeing what's happened to him and going through it all. So I wish it well. Can't wait to see what they do. Anything Bob Lazar is really fun to watch, so it's going to be great. Hopefully we learn some new information. So there's a lot of fun things coming, man.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered the general cornucopia of UFO related news for the time being. We've got some good stuff coming.
Next week, man.
And maybe some images down the road,
I hope so, man. I hope we keep
disclosure's dead. Maybe we'll get leaked something,
Yeah, I'm not asking for it, but if we're consistent in our reporting, I would suspect it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.